Hey everyone, we're hitting you up on Friday and we have Tim Anderson here in studio to talk earnings and what's going on next week. Tim, what you got for us?
Okay, so this was a very busy week for corporate earnings. High-profile corporate earnings like Cat Tractor and Triple M, and a long list of stocks that are in the Dow, very high-profile names. I would say that investors so far have a mixed to almost a relieved come away from earnings so far. We're about 2 weeks into it because we haven't had any big misses. We haven't had any really heavy downgrades or negative comments in conference calls, negative guidance. Now, that's not to say that all the earnings were great, but it was thought to be a difficult earnings season on a comparison with last year.
Is that because they walked them down so much?
Well, a little bit of that. That's a game that companies have played quite a while. They like to sandbag their earnings and get the consensus down as much as they can so that they can beat the number and have a good feeling about that. Also, last year's third quarter earnings were in that 3-quarter span from the first, second, and third quarter last year, where they initially benefited from a significantly lower corporate tax rate. So those earnings were up 25%-ish from the prior year. So for us to have a big jump over that was just too big of a hurdle. So we're going to be maybe up 2 or 3% by the time earnings are all said and done with for this third quarter.
So does that line up nicely with what we were doing before we had these beautiful corporate tax cuts and we were doing so well with earnings?
There is no doubt that the economy and corporate earnings are still benefiting from lower tax rates significantly. It's just that it made the comparisons for the last couple of quarters difficult.
Okay, Tim, we got a rate cut or a rate hike or nothing happening next week.
Well, next week we will get the Fed, and where this week has been all about corporate earnings, next week we're going to have the Fed rate decision on Wednesday, and then some big economic data Thursday and Friday.
So wait, do you think they're going to do anything?
You know, it's a very tough call. It's a tougher call than it has been the last 2 meetings, and I think it will be for the Fed also. But if it's a 50-50 decision on whether or not they cut rates, I think the tiebreaker might be that the Fed funds rate is still above where the short-term rates on the yield curve, the 1 year, the 2 year, the 3 year are right around 1.6%, and the bound on the Fed funds rate is 175 to 2. And I think that might be a tiebreaker because they would really like to get the Fed funds rate below the market rates that are in the short end of the yield curve.